The dusty plains stretched far and wide, the evening sun setting behind the rolling hills as a young widow named Clara arrived at the giant ranch, holding the trembling hands of her two small children. Her face was weary, her clothes patched, and her eyes held a mix of hope and fear. She had come miles on foot, following a job posting that promised food and shelter in exchange for work. When she knocked on the door of the large wooden house, the man who opened it towered over her, broad-shouldered, sharp-eyed, and cold as stone. He was known around the county as the giant rancher, a man feared for his temper and strength. "What do you want?" he asked in a deep, irritated voice. Clara lowered her head and said softly, "I came for the job, cooking, cleaning, anything you need, sir." He looked her up and down, then noticed the two children hiding behind her skirt. "You're here to work, not to bring trouble," he barked. "You are here only to cook. Understand?" She nodded quickly, whispering, "Yes, sir." He turned away, muttering something about strays showing up every winter, and slammed the door behind him. The next few days were hard. Clara cooked from dawn till night, washed dishes until her fingers bled, and made sure not to anger the rancher. Her children stayed quiet in a small shed he had allowed them to sleep in. But even in her exhaustion, she kept smiling at her little ones, whispering lullabies to make them feel safe. The rancher, whose name was Luke, barely spoke to her. He just ate his meals and went back to his work in the fields, his face unreadable. One morning, Luke returned early from the cattle yard and found Clara's children sitting by the kitchen door, trying to eat cold scraps of bread. They froze when they saw him. The little boy tried to hide his sister behind him. Something in that moment struck Luke deeply. The fear in their eyes reminded him of himself as a child, abandoned after his parents died. He said nothing, just walked past them. But that night, when Clara entered the kitchen, she found a basket of fresh milk, apples, and warm bread on the table. Days turned into weeks. Luke began noticing how Clara hummed softly while cooking, how her children laughed quietly despite their hardships. The house, once cold and silent, started to feel alive. One stormy night, he found the children huddled near the fireplace, shivering. Without a word, he carried them to the warm guest room. When Clara saw that, tears filled her eyes. She whispered, "Thank you, sir." For the first time, Luke smiled faintly. As winter passed, the walls of bitterness between them slowly crumbled. Luke started sharing meals with them, teaching the children how to feed the horses and gather firewood. He learned that Clara's husband had died saving a neighbor's child from a flood. That story shook him to the core. One evening, as the golden light filled the room, Luke looked at Clara and said, "You were never here just to cook. You brought warmth back to this house." She smiled shyly, tears glistening in her eyes. From that day on, the giant rancher was no longer known for his anger, but for the family he found when he least expected it.